everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Independent Thought. My name is Desmond Price. For today's episode, we are joined by Matthew Diemer. He's running for Congress out of Ohio's 7th District. Matthew, how you doing today? Thank you for coming on the show.
Desmond, my man, how you doing? Good to see you again.
Good, good. So let me just start off with a really basic question. I asked this to a lot of people come on the show, but I think it's a very pertinent question to ask everybody. What is it that drew you to wanting to run for Congress, and why do you believe that you would be the best person to represent your district going into Washington?
This literally is like the cookie cutter question that everybody always asks every candidate, and so I should be good at answering this one. But I want to just throw it back to the listeners really quick. They probably say, "What do you mean again? Were you on the show again?" Before we were doing this show right here, we hooked up to talk through this episode, and we got to know each other a little bit. So everybody's just like, if you guys go back in your catalog and are wondering what was the other episode I was on, we just had a chat before this episode and we got to know each other a little bit. So why am I running and what drew me to it? Look, I lived abroad for a while. And when I was living in China, I lived in China from 2005 until 2017, and then Taiwan from 17 to 19. I also did my undergrad in University of Hawaii. So I was over in Hawaii for about 5 years. And through that time, my mother would tell me that America's getting more and more divided, at least closer to our current time right now. And I didn't believe her. And at the same time, I saw China come from 2005 to where it is today, with huge economic rise, a booming middle class, jobs, cities being built, infrastructure being built. And when I got back to the U.S., I saw that our middle class was being gutted. I saw that we are super divided, and I wanted to try to figure out how to help in one way we can. And so I started working with the communities. I started to volunteer. I started to organize, and then I said, I got to jump in the race, because there's a lot of things that need to get done. And I think somebody with the experience, life and professional, and travel and international experience that I have could probably be a good asset in Washington, especially for Ohio's 7th District.
It's something that I hear a lot when we hear about people talking about, China, for instance. We hear about manufacturing jobs and how they've been shipped over to China, other countries like Mexico, but in China in particular, especially with a lot of the trade agreements that happened in the 90s, 2000s, Ohio, other states in the Midwest have been gutted with these loss of manufacturing jobs. What does the U.S. need to do in order to bring those jobs back to this country, in order to get more people better paying jobs, and to, frankly, lower what is high inflation right now?
Look, you said bring those jobs back, and I'm going to say that most of those jobs are not coming back. And I don't think we want some of those jobs to come back. Do we want to be the sock maker of the world? I don't think we want to, right? But there are emerging new innovations and emerging technologies that are coming out here that are going to need a home to build, to innovate, to create their foothold so they can distribute globally. And that's where the United States comes in. So when we're talking about EVs, who's going to be making EVs? Is it going to be China? Is it going to be their batteries, their minerals, or is it going to be the United States? Is it going to be, when it comes to solar or wind, when it comes to developments and innovations in nuclear technology, or even fusion, not fission, but fusion technology? Is that going to be the U.S. or is that going to be China? And biotech, like even the new vaccines that we have, medical advances, and so on and so forth. I think that we have a choice. We have a choice to say, hey, do we want that to be produced somewhere else? Or do we want to make sure that we are encouraging these companies to come over here, set up shop, use our skilled, experienced workforce, and call this home? And that's what I think that we need to do. And this is what I think we're kind of going toward right now. If you look at the Inflation Reduction Act and their incentives to buy EVs, it's the $7,500 credit to buy an EV that fits certain criteria. I will argue that $7,500 credit is not for the consumer. It is not for you and me. It's not to say, hey, Desmond, let's get you a new car and get you a little bit of money off, but you don't need to incentivize buying EVs. They're flying off the shelves. There's wait orders for Teslas and Rivians and Lucids and Ford F-150 Lightnings and Hummers and all these other cars that are coming out. You can't get them. What I think the incentive is for is to start incentivizing these companies to build here and only build here. So with the $7,500 credit, it comes with stipulations. For example, the car has to be this much made in the United States, and then over the next 10 years, it becomes that more and more of that car has to be made here in the US. More and more of that battery has to be made here in the US. More and more of those minerals have to be sourced here from North America. So the incentives are aligning that we want to make the EV industry American made, American manufactured, American distributed globally. And so I think we should need to do that with all these new industries. Space travel, for example, Elon Musk, SpaceX, the industry that could come out with tourism in space. People don't like that. They say, "Oh, that's a rich person's game." But you know what? After soon, traveling to outer space to a hotel could be a family getaway if we have enough space hotels or something like that. And I know that might be sounding like sci-fi for a lot of people, but again, it will happen. And where do you want that rocket to be built? I want it to be built here in Ohio. Where do I want those hotels capsules to be built? I want it to be built here in Ohio. And where do I want that revenue to go to when people are spending and taking those flights? And I wanted it to come back here to Ohio's 7th district. And so when you said, how do we get those manufacturing jobs back? We don't, for the most part. We incentivize new industries and new innovations to set up shop here. And then we control, or not control, let's say, but we have the footprint of these massive new companies producing these new innovations of technology that are going to be driving the late 21st to 22nd century in the United States.
So when people hear about this, typically, as of right now, jobs are not scarce. We are in a time where jobs are booming. In fact, employers around the country are having a hard time filling certain jobs. So unlike, the climate that was a decade ago, if you were to say like, oh, we're going to get these jobs, like people are like, oh, well, we have jobs right now. What we really need are better paying jobs that allow us to have only one job and not have to have 2 or 3 jobs. Now, what is the government's role in allowing these new jobs that we were just talking about to actually being higher paying, more equitable, have better benefits so that people can feel secure in the job that they're getting? And do you support labor unions at all?
I 100% support labor unions. And so here's what I think it is one is we have to make the trade sexy again. Trades are great paying jobs. Look, we have a new microchip factory, semiconductor factory coming over here outside of Columbus. It's said to employ or need to employ 7,000 skilled laborers to help get that place built. You're not going to be able to find those just in Ohio. You're going to be importing a lot of labor, a lot of specialty skills from all over the surrounding areas to come into Ohio to get this place built. They said that the jobs are going to pay anywhere from $125,000 to $150,000 a year. And so there's your incentive. You see that those jobs are there. We see that there's factories coming and being built all over the US when it comes to battery plants or solar plants or this semiconductor plant, and they're going to continue to come because we've seen that there are supply chain issues. We know that we cannot rely on China or Taiwan or Japan or South Korea to get some of those high tech, very skilled and precise equipments. And so we need to have them here. So we need to make the trade sexy again. Make sure get people to go into be an electrician, a carpenter, a bricklayer, whatever is there to have those trades again. Also, we need to incentivize those specialties of emerging and innovative technologies and get people to go through those kind of courses as well. And so I think that if we allow the market to basically, if we allow the market to show you what we want, and the government comes over here and helps out by saying, let's promote this, let's make this a thing, let's make sure that we are promoting this new emergence, this renaissance of American innovation and manufacturing, I think that the people will go and get those jobs and not be just try to be lawyers, because that's the high paying job. I think they're going to go this way. And then your question was about unions. I think unions and labor is part of the free market. And I think that is forgotten that it is a lot of the time. That is about the negotiation. If you as a company, if I'm a business owner and I'm on the supply side of it, I'm negotiating with my suppliers and my shippers and whatever, like constantly trying to find the best price, trying to, and they're trying to do the same thing with me, try to get the best price for me as well. And that's how that works. Now with labor, for some reason, we don't allow that communication. We don't allow that communication between employees with themselves. We don't allow it between the employees in the company, the employees together at, communicating as a team against with the company, or with, any other aspect of their job when it comes to their hours or their benefits or their time off or their vacation. It's almost like a take it or leave it. And I don't think that that is actually free market. And so we need to protect the right to organize, the right to communicate, and the right of the worker to negotiate their pay. And if you do that and it is free, it is totally free, then I think that those good paying jobs that provide pensions and good healthcare and great vacations, and you get back to that one family income level that we were at before.
All right. So I definitely want to ask you a little bit more about trade schools, and, like what exactly we need to do to be funding them and how that kind of ties into the conversations around colleges. And, obviously with Biden just recently giving that student loan relief for those who had, ten to $20,000 worth of debt. But before we do all that, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to have more questions with our candidate. Please stay tuned. From the break, everyone. Thank you for sticking with us through this episode of Independent Thought. So before we went on the break, we were talking about trade schools, college debt that was just forgiven. Let me ask you this in a two-pronged way. First off, when we're having this conversation like nationally, President Biden just forgave, between $10,000 to $20,000 worth of student loan like forgiveness for people who had outstanding debt. There's a lot of frenzy about it around the country, saying it's only affected a portion of the population. People are saying we need to be incentivizing people away from college anyway, because degrees mean less and less. We need to be going after trade schools. Like I'm in the frame mind of myself that I think that we can do both, that we can, kind of help people get through college and promote trade schools. But where do you fall on this? Like, what should we be doing, with colleges and trade schools? And also, let me get you to say this. Did you agree with President Biden forgiving the student loans?
Okay, so there's two questions there. What should we be doing about the schools and trade schools? How do we promote that? And do I agree with President Biden forgiving the loans? That is, for the President Biden question, I'm going to give a two-part answer. Number one, I am 100% stoked that people got 10,000 or 20,000 off their student loans, and some of them are just totally wiped out because they had just only $10,000, and I think that's what 20 million people. And I want to say that I am not in the camp, and I think that it's a horrible argument and a weak argument to say, well, some people paid off their loans, so why are these people getting, I think that's just a weak argument. Grow up, be happy for those people. I'm very happy for those people. With that said, I don't totally agree with it. Actually, I don't agree with it because I don't think it solves the underlying issues. The underlying issues that, colleges are too expensive. If you look at the highest paid, and I just actually looked at this couple of days ago. Don't quote me on any of these numbers, but the general idea of it was the highest paid person for public institutions are football coaches in colleges or presidents of colleges, right? And so we have the wrong incentives when it comes to universities. We have the wrong, and now we're incentivizing, I think, another wrong thing when it comes to universities. We're not cutting off making sure that we're figuring out how to keep the prices down. We're not allowing bankruptcy as well. So, this debt is just burdened with you forever. We are not, long story short is I don't think that we're fixing the problem. We're just putting a Band-Aid over it. And since this is an executive order and this is something that he just, he did, I think that he can also do some problem solving when it comes to this. So I'm happy for the people who got their loans forgiven. But now can we have an executive order to make sure that we try to fix this, or we put some, maybe some criteria on this executive order to, make sure that we're fixing this problem. So that's my biggest issue with it. It doesn't solve the problem, and it incentivizes the wrong things. Back to the schools. How do we get people to go to trade schools? What can we do? That's, I think, where we come in when we talk about making schools and degrees cheaper. Look, we talk about trade schools and shortages with in the trades. We also have a police shortage. We also have a teacher shortage. We have shortages in a lot of different industries, truck driver shortage, right? What is the biggest goal for the United States right now? And I think that we have to have a very big national discussion about that. And maybe the president needs to lead that discussion. Where do we see ourselves in 10, 20, 50 years? And what do we do to incentivize that growth in 50 years? Do we just like just throw it to the breeze? Or do we see that there's specific paths that we need to take? China has been on a specific path this whole time to try to do a couple of things. One, create a big economy. Two, not to be dependent on any nation outside of China. And three, unify China. They're trucking on. Everybody says that there's a lot of things going on in China with their economy messed up and their housing bubble and zero COVID and stuff like that. I promise you, they're going to continue going through this goal, even though there's bumps in the road right now. How are we doing it? And I think that's where these schools come in. We should be incentivizing and offering a free write-off of your education if you do these certain things that we are looking for in the United States right now. Do we need more STEM? Absolutely. Here, you do some kind of science or engineering, and then you work in work in a certain industry, we'll forgive your loans. We need teachers. Here, go be a teacher. Get your degree, get your master's, and then work as a teacher 10 years, we forgive your loan. We need truck drivers. Truck driving school is free. Go over there, we will write that off for you. We need, all these different things. So if we want to incentivize certain industries and we need that kind of skill and that labor in those jobs filled, I think that we should be looking at this as, hey, how do we want to, progress as a nation? Where do we see ourselves in 50 years, 20, maybe even 50 years, and then incentivize those jobs and that training and that education to match?
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. And, I think when it comes down to it, people talking about different jobs right now and like levels of pay, this, that, and the other, a lot of people are looking at the current climate about, some people talk about like, corporations and about how they aren't paying people enough. And there are people right now are struggling in this economy because they're being asked to do more, but they're not being compensated for that extra work. Now, some people have been saying that we need to rein corporations in by kind of breaking them up or by raising taxes, or maybe on one end we're trying to like raise the minimum wage. But there's a bunch of different ideas floating around, but the bottom line is that people are trying to figure out how to get these companies to pay their workers more because they're just not paying them according to the cost of living right now. Now, as someone who's trying to enter into the halls of Congress, what is the government's job here in order to get companies to be paying people more? And do you believe that this current Congress is doing enough, in that regard?
I don't think that it is up to Congress. Again, I think that this is a free market. Then again, let's go back to the labor question. As like, is it actually free? Is the labor market free? Are you just free to move from job to job? Are you free to talk to your job and organize that job and that labor to talk about what does a good pay mean for that industry or that job? If Amazon is union busting, but they're still getting, billions of dollars of profit, what worker do you know that's working in Amazon, no matter if you're making $15 an hour or not, is looking at the profits going like, this is built around us, the worker, the people who are delivering this, the people who are packing the boxes, the people who are, doing X, Y, and Z. And so if they don't have the freedom in this free market to organize and discuss and negotiate, then yes, of course, they're going to have low wages. So I personally think that what Congress should do, and I think that this also ties back into my last one, is I want to make sure that we're not incentivizing and destroying the markets and making sure that, because what we are going to see right now is we have to make the markets lead themselves. We need skilled labor to build a semiconductor plant. People are going to go into the trades to make sure that they try to capitalize on those jobs. They're going to pay $100,000, $150,000 a year coming out as an electrician, right? We want to help him hurry that up. So then we can say, hey, free school if you guys go do that, because the market is already driving that way and people are going to go into that, but we want to further push and incentivize. When it comes to labor and what the wages is going to be, this is how the wages were set back in the day. Is people just said, I'm not working until I get good pay, right? And they were allowed to do that. And so I think that the government needs to make sure that freedom of organized labor is part of the deal. And I promise you that the workers will come up and they will fight and get the wages that they deserve.
Okay. And I think just tying back into, this question one more time, and I think this will probably be the final question I have here for you. You talk about bringing these new jobs like into America. One of the things you had referenced was, like electric cars. And this is something that I think is a lot more appealing right now because we just had a summer where gas prices ballooned, to over like $5 a gallon nationally. And it kind of just it sparked the conversation back and forth. Like one side was saying we need to be drilling more for oil. Another side was saying, like, see, this is the reason why we need to be transitioning away from gasoline. Where do you think we should be at right now? Like, do you think that we should be doubling down on fossil fuel production, to make sure that gas prices don't get that high again? Or was what happened this summer a clear sign that we need to be investing more into green energy and just transitioning away from fossil fuels so we don't have to be dependent on them anymore in the future?
I think we need to walk and chew gum at the same time. We need to be independent, energy independent. And if the fastest way to do that right now is with fossil fuels, then we do it with fossil fuels. We should not be talking to OPEC. We shouldn't be worried about what's happened in Russia. We shouldn't be worried about any of that. We have one of the biggest land areas of a country in the world with so many resources and so many climates and a hell of a lot of skilled and motivated people. We should be 100% energy independent. If it's fossil fuels now, and then we wait for the green energy industry to catch up so we can start, implementing that, then we implement that. If we can implement the green energy industry now in certain places that are sunnier, for example, or windier, for example, or has water, for example, then we implement that. But we need to be energy independent right now. And I don't think that, full stop.
Okay. I think, not actually, this has me like have one last question here for you. And you are running in the state of Ohio. This
Yes,
state
sir.
has flipped between red and blue over the last 10 years. So it's a very purplish area. And I think you're also in a very purple district from what I could see. So in that climate, being a Democrat right now, in a year where, Democrats are kind of like not doing as bad as they were, but they're still kind of treading water a little bit. How do you pitch yourself as a Democrat to your district and to the people of your state that the Democratic Party is actually the right party to be leading the country into the next, into the future, basically?
I don't. I don't. I call myself an independent Democrat, and I don't want to link myself to any party, to be honest with you. And that's because we need to have independent thought. We need to be voting for people, not for party. We need to put policy over politics. So when I talk to people and they say, "Oh, well, you're a Democrat," I say, first of all, if I could run for as an independent, get on the ballot, and actually, win in Ohio, I would. But you can't. The two-party system has got me locked out. So I had to choose either a Republican or a Democrat. I could easily be a moderate Republican. I tell people this all the time. I can easily be a moderate Republican. I'm a moderate Democrat. I want to be an independent. I want to be something in the middle where I can take all of my ideologies and put into a party that I believe in. And honestly, it's not some of the Democrats, and it's definitely not some of the Republican Party as well, right? And so I don't think so. The only thing I tell everybody that when I'm running is that I am running to, one, unify the conversation here in Ohio 7th, to create solutions, to bring people to the table. The first thing I'm going to do when I get into Washington is I'm going to call the Republican Party, and I'm going to call the Democrat Party and the city leaders of every city in the district. And I'm going to say, let's set up a meeting. Let's get everybody in the same room. And you guys tell me what I can do for you in Washington. And yes, somebody's going to yell about this. And yes, somebody's going to yell about this. And yeah, they're going to blame this side and that side. And I'm going to be right in the middle. I'm going to take it all in. I'm going to be like, calm down. Let's find a solution. What works for you? And I'm going to take that to the next city. And I'm going to take that to the next city. And then I'm going to take that to Washington, D.C. And I'm not going to vote party lines. I'm not going to vote, my own ideas and just kind of be like a little president or a dictator over here. I'm going to vote the solutions of the district. And the only way we can do that is for somebody to come in and create those solutions. And talk about those solutions and operate in a way that isn't just, that side bad, that side good. And so I don't know if it's Democrats that leads for the future. I don't know if it's a different change in the Republican Party. There is a fraction in the Republican Party I see out there on the street every day. There is the MAGA Trump Republican Party, and there's Republicans out there going like, "What happened to my party?" So, and then there's the same thing that's happening in the Democrat Party as well with the progressives and a lot of Democrats that remember like JFK Democrats, So again, just to answer your question, I do not play the party game. I play the let's make sure we are creating the best solutions for the district, for the people game. And if I firmly believe that if I can do that and communicate that I am doing that and demonstrate that I'm doing that in a practical way, then I will be a very successful congressperson. And if I do not do that, I will be just like every other congressperson where half of their district either hates me or half of their district loves me in swing districts. Or if you're an all blue district, then you're just going to live in your seat until you die. So that's the way I'm looking at it.
All right. Well, Matthew, I appreciate you coming on the show today, taking the time to tell us about you and your platform, what you want to do for Washington. Where can people learn more about you and your campaign online? And when does early voting start in Ohio?
Well, you can go to diemerforcongress.com. That's DIEMER for Congress.com. You can check out my platform there. You can check out some videos we have around the district. You can check out campaign videos. You can learn about my background, my history, my stories. It's all up there. I call myself the most transparent candidate that is running out there today because I put it all up online. I put my financials for the campaign online. Let's talk about one thing really quick. What is transparency? A lot of people think transparency is just because you can ask for the records is transparent, like public records. I personally believe that transparency means it's accessible and easy to find. And so that's why I have a tab on my website that says, hey, you want to look at what our campaign's spending money on, how much we raised? Boom, you click that tab, you can read it all day. You want to know my financial disclosures? What about Matthew? What stocks do I own? Do I own any Bitcoin? Or do I have student loan debt or do I not have student loan debt? Click that tab, it'll take you straight to it. And I think that's what we're missing. Is not that people say that these are transparent, is the accessibility of one-click buttons for people to find this information. So that's on my website as well. And also there's the donation button. We always need money to run these campaigns. I am 100% for campaign finance reform, asking people, average people, for money after they pay taxes all year round and send it to the government to go ask them for more money to run for office, I think is absolutely a sham. I think the amount of money in politics is a sham. It's ridiculous. It's crazy. It's disgusting. Unless we could change that system, I'm still going to need a couple bucks. So I would appreciate donations.
Right. And when is early voting starting in Ohio?
Oh, October 12th.
October 12th. Perfect. So we will have those links that you just referenced in the episode description. And if you are in the state of Ohio, make sure that you're registered to vote and make sure you go out and vote early. And for everyone who came out and listened to this episode today, thank you so much. We will see you in the next episode. Take care. All right.